Right, hello guys, you little sexies, you little freaks, you little sexnomic sexies. That's your name now, sexies. Today we're going to be doing Anonymous Confessions and we're going to be getting into bad one night stands. You guys seem to be really enjoying, the bits of smut that I seem to be collecting from you guys. So I thought it was right to put it into a podcast episode about something that we all get the universal ick around, which is one night stands. Let's get into the little facts that I like to read to you guys. A lot of these facts are to do with female responses to one night stands, but fact one is women are more likely to feel disconnected and disjointed from the experience of having a one night stand, mainly due to feeling judged afterwards or their expectations weren't what they thought they would be in their head, or having their boundaries crossed. When looking at the orgasm gap, which is basically if you take a heterosexual couple and look at who's coming more than the other, that's the orgasm gap. But looking at the orgasm gap is the widest in the casual hookup space. Women are far less likely to orgasm during one night stands compared to men, suggesting casual sex often prioritizes male pleasure. Alcohol is also involved in the majority of one night stands, obviously resulting in lower inhibitions. The thing about one night stands is that, you can't be looking at someone's face when they're like bouncing on top of you and say all of this shit and then not know their name. Sorry, what's your name again? I always say that people like to do one night stands because they're functional, but as I've got older, I've realised that people don't like to do them. People do them thinking that they're functional, but what they want is this synthetic relationship experience, which defeats the purpose of a one night stand where you can be disconnected. And I think that's where you get people on very different paths, when it comes to one night stands, and very different levels of communication and what they want and what they desire. The idea of just, bumping into someone in a club or bar or wherever you are that you meet that person for the one night stand and thinking that after a few sentences they're going to be able to give you the exact thing you need and want to fulfill yourself on a fundamental level, sexually, morally and spiritually. Is that a bit presumptuous? I would think so. But anyway, this is your Anonymous Confessions on bad one night stand. It's just you and me, and we're gonna go through what some other sluts have been up to. The first story takes place in Prague because the title is called Nothing Good Happens in Prague. And this is a boy doing this story. So, back in 2015, I was on my first ever holiday away from my parents with the boys. On a whole, I was really looking forward to it. We'd been planning it for a year or so, and all of us conveniently turned 18 before February when we went. The idea was that we'd go, drink lots, mooch about, maybe meet up with some hot chicas, and perhaps get into some mischief. Oi oi. When we arrived at the hotel, we found out there was one less bed than we required when we booked the hotel. Speaking to the manager, they agreed that they would give us a sofa bed and they would refund that part of the deposit and give us the money back as some kind of compensation for the whole ordeal. Happy days. The 100 euros I got unfortunately wasn't worth it. This fold-out bed was stinky, smelled of damp, it was lumpy, you could feel the springs, and I'm pretty sure that someone jizzed on it. It was basically impossible to get a good night's sleep on it for the 3 days we were going to be there, let alone have a good conscience of sleeping on it. Anyway, the first few days were class. However, I hadn't been able to sleep properly from the occasional moment when we took the train outside of the city. On the final night, it was meant to be our big night out, and that we did. We were absolutely drunk. We then started chatting up these girls at a bar who were studying or something along their lines. What else could they be doing? The one I fancied had student accommodation somewhere nearby, which initially I thought if I could shag her and nap her, that would be killing two birds with one stone. Ugh, man. I asked, what was she like? She was attractive, but I think it was the whole foreign thing because I was so young and I hadn't really heard someone with such an accent before. This girl in particular, her name was Nilda. She was average height, had long blonde mousy hair and quite big teeth. I remember my friend telling me she looked like the spawn of Hot Jaws. Anyway, the night went on and on. We got chatting, but I don't think either one of my friends were interested in the girls, but I was interested in Nilda. However, my friends wanted to go to a strip club. I decided to stick it out with her and reconvene with them later back at the hotel. Or maybe with Nilda, I could get a good night's sleep. or partially. We stuck around with her friends for a bit where we would continue to drink, and I eventually paid €60 to get a taxi with her back to the dorm. But then she proceeded to throw up. Oh God, this doesn't end well. Got kicked out of the taxi and had to walk the rest of the way. I held her hair back while she hurled onto the pavement, and I asked her, is she okay? Is she sure she wants to go through with this? But she was very passionate and said she wanted to do it, and she stayed committed to the process. I at least thought, even if we didn't shag, I'd have a nice night having a nap in the bed. We got into her dorm room to only find the tiniest little bed that just wasn't going to accommodate my 6'3" self and this tallish girl to do our thing. Not to mention there was no heating whilst we're in the dead of winter. I specifically remember her saying in a Czech accent, I'm going to put my jacket on, but I'm going to fuck you so hard. I could only explain what happened next was a girl on top of me, riding me with a puffer jacket, making donkey-like moaning noises, which I was partially into, but put off by the puffer jacket. The sex finished and she said, are you going to go back to yours? I thought she wanted me to go, so I did. I didn't want to be a pest, even though I wanted a good night's sleep, until I realised I'd left my wallet and phone in the taxi. She suggested that I slept on the floor with a pillow and a blanket, and the next day I hitchhiked home to only quickly pack with my friends to catch our flight home, but we missed it. Oh, worst holiday ever. I don't know what to say about that one. Oof. Okay, number 2. This one is called Projection and Not Much Injection. I don't know how this one's gonna go. Myself and my friend found ourselves on a night out at Cirque in London once. We love to go out and have a bit of sheesh and get a little bit of a buzz on, and our friend is a club promoter, so he can always get us into some cool spots last minute. Shout out to Tarek. As stated, our friend got us a table at Cirque, the somewhat known artist. I think the correct term is that they were on the come up. There was a lot of crew and entourage going on, and a lot of drippy guys. Drip means like wearing a lot of bling, I think. Me and my friend were having a nice time, and I sat down to have a drink and a little scroll on my phone, and then one of the crew members came and sat next to me. I need to know who this is. Like, girl, spill the tea. Like, which crew did this guy belong to? There was a clear energy and a lot of flirtiness. He asked me where I'm staying after this. I brushed him off initially, just keeping it light and flirting a little bit for the rest of the night, but eventually he wheeled me in and we went outside to get a taxi after knowing my friend would get home okay. I said really cavalierly, back to yours. Please bear in mind, this man was flexing his drip, his sparkly watches, and his connections that would suggest his wealth. Also bear in mind, he was saying all night to get me into the taxi that a woman like me deserved to be treated right. He even said I would look good with some Fendi on me, but if he was about it, I was into it. He was still eager to go to mine, even though I relayed to him on the night that I had a flat share, which I found odd. Didn't budge, and he said, don't worry, we're going to go to the hotel. Given the squad he was hanging out with, I was thinking some kind of upscale West London Savoy, maybe the Bulgari Hotel, but then when we got into the cab, he proceeded to tell the driver to take us to the local Travelodge. My face dropped and he saw, which obviously made it very awkward. On the way there, he said, oh, I see, you think you're too good for places like that. I detested and tried to defuse the situation. And then he quipped with the next line, just like my baby mama, you guys just can't give us breaks. Again, I was trying to cool the situation and get us back on track of the flirty vibe we had. I hadn't really absorbed what he just said, looking back now. I said something along the lines of, I might have expected that, but it's calm, it's okay. But then he proceeded to look at me dead in the eyes and said, nah, babe. A sneaky little link is a Travelodge ting. In slight disbelief, I remember shoving his shoulders and in a jokingly way, said, oh, who do you think you are? We eventually arrived at the Travelodge and got a room. Really digesting and reflecting on what he said in the cab, I knew the sexual vibe had gone. Yeah, babe, it would have exited my body and left the building. We were about to get down to it, and I said to him, I'm just not feeling it, and I'll sit this one out, but we'll still chat to him and have a drink, because he was a really cool guy in the club. I'm not really sure what happened in the taxi. I kid you not, the hurricane that left this grown man's mouth, he was so irate, and the lecture I got that he had to pay for this meaty little travel lodge and how wasteful I've been because I said I didn't want to fuck. Girl, like, get out of the room. I couldn't take him seriously with the rest of what he said. He kept on saying that he's fucked bare girls, like supermodel level, in the travel lodge, so why is it not good enough for me? He was trying to make me feel like he'd done me the favour, saying he could have slept with any girl in that club, and he chose me. Oh, this man. Oh. Mentally, I was checked out, so I decided to leave the travel lodge and go home and get a taxi, obviously quite shaken up. On a serious note, some guys will say anything to get you into the bedroom. I know this usually, but I think on this particular instance, I just wanted to let my guard down. But the experience ended up showing me there's more to benefit from in terms of having your guard up. It's so striking that he thought I owed him something when actually no one owes anyone anything, especially after you speak to someone like that. But it just goes to show the people you meet in nightlife can be night and day personalities. Well, first of all, he's paid for the travel lodge. He's not paid for the Bulgari. So, you know, even if he did pay for the Bulgari and you said no, that would be okay. Because what, like... he thinks he paid for the cab and the hotel that he can fuck you. He can get a little fuck. You know, it sounded like you were at a table where you guys weren't even paying for your own drink. So like, what has he contributed? You know, even if you run on that logic, he's not entitled to you either way. But how dare he say that to you, you know, after he's probably some guy like mooching off his friend, part of like a crew, like a waste man hanging on to their friend's clout. Oh, this one made me angry. Like, I'm so sorry you've gone through that. For him to say, oh, I fucked bare supermodels in travel lodge. Babe, no, you ain't. You've hired escorts and you've ordered them to travel lodge. So please, like, sit back down and shut up and don't talk to me. Ugh, men, so sickening sometimes. Hopefully you can meet some nicer guys. The final and last story is called Finger Blast 5000. Can't do this. No. Sorry. The final story is called Finger Blast 5000. No, sorry, Finger Blast 500, not 5000. Okay. So I said to the girl who submitted this story, tell me about your experience. I was visiting Berlin for the weekend with friends. There's a lot of international travel when it comes to hookup. The plan was to go out and experience the legendary nightlife. We ended up at a club called Trezor. The vibe was really good in there, and me and my friends were really enjoying the vibe, hobnobbing with different people from different countries and asking people how their night has been. I find that stuff so interesting. We then proceeded to drop some pills and we started having an even sicker night. I remember feeling all sorts. I think the pills were slightly wacky and laced with LSD because I remember hallucinating. Guys, like, I just want to say, don't take pills. You don't know what's inside of them. You don't know what's cut with them. You know, like, I'm happy you're having a sixth time in this story, but like, pills, you just don't know like what's inside of them. So just don't take those. I was tripping so hard. There was a point where I could see the colour of all the different sounds coming from all the different elements of the DJ's music. And they were all connecting to my heart by different strings. Wow. Whoa, man. Whoa, so trippy. But then eventually I bumped into this big, tall, stacked guy on the dance floor. I remember very specifically that he was wearing a white t-shirt and jeans, which I thought was so plain when everyone else was wearing black. In the sea of black, he radiated like a Jesus on the dance floor. Girl, you were tripping so hard. I remember trying to talk to him because, again, I thought he was hot. But I simply remember him saying something like he would like to be in my energy, but he doesn't want to talk. He just wanted to focus on the music and communicate with me that way. Before I committed to connecting with him through dance, I asked what drugs he was on, and he just winked at me and said all of them. What? I was so tripped out. There was me skanking out proper British style, and then he was doing his typical Berlin shuffle that they do over there, which seems to be very popular throughout the community. They all seem to dance unilaterally. I then remember him breaking our silence and saying, I quite like you, I wouldn't mind, and then I replied, fucking? And he nodded. Isolated from my friends again, we then proceeded to find a wall and got into the action. Because he was so tall and I'm quite short, it was a bit awkward to actually have sex there. So we decided on a cheeky finger, and I didn't call this re-encounter Finger Blast 300 for no reason. I later connected with my friends at the smoking section, feeling pretty euphoric about what just happened and wanted to give them the dirty details, only for them to say to me, "Yeah, we know. Everyone on that side of the room was watching." I'm not quite sure if this classes as a one night stand, and it wasn't the worst experience, but it certainly was embarrassing. Oh well, I had a good time. Love the pod. Well, I feel like in Berlin, whatever goes is fine. I feel like maybe it was a bit embarrassing for your friends, you know, they don't really want to see that. But for the other people, they probably just looked to the side and then looked back at the DJ, zoned in and focused on their own path. I don't think you need to feel shame about that. I think if your friends make you feel shame about that, ask them why they were looking so much. You know, if I accidentally just stumbled across that with my friend, I would firstly, you know, try to understand that that's something they would want to do, and then I would look away and I would just kind of let them continue and have that moment with that tall German guy who seems to be quite antisocial. You know, like, you can just look away, you know, you don't have to stare. Maybe it's something for you to investigate with your friends, why they were staring so much, you know. Thank you for submitting your bad one night stand confessions today, guys. I had lots of fun reading through them. You can submit your own. I'll leave the email below, and it's also on our Instagram. We take random stories, but also we do categories sometimes for you to submit your stories on. I had a blast. I'm gonna say my favorite one, I really didn't like this projection and not much injection of this guy who, you know, was like pressuring you. That wasn't cool. And I like your sentiment of, you know, acknowledging that this is not okay. I think that one's going to be my favorite of the day because it really sounds like you know, put down your boundary and you held strong. So well done for that. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time, guys, and see you soon, sexies.